Lazarus! Come out!
They said it would be the most emotional season yet. But nothing could prepare us for what's coming in season 6 of The Chosen. The betrayal has happened. Judas kissed him. And now, the road to the cross begins. Filming has already covered the arrest, the trial, and the moment Jesus is handed to Pilate. And what's coming next? The crucifixion. Shot in the same place as the Passion of the Christ. The crowd is louder. The silence heavier. Jesus carries the cross, bloody, broken, but still choosing love. This won't just be another episode. It's a feature-length film. A story that won't just show the pinnacle, make us feel it. The trailer is still under wraps. But every behind-the-scenes moment proves one thing. Season 6 will change us. The death of Jesus isn't...
What if I told you the most powerful episode of The Chosen isn't coming at the end of the season, but right at the beginning? Episode 1 of Season 6 doesn't just ease us into the final chapter. It drags us into the darkness of Jesus' last night on earth. One by one, the betrayals begin. The silence grows louder than words, and for the first time, The Chosen dares to show us the world as it truly was in those hours before the cross. Not through spectacle, but through stillness, suffering, and the weight of what's coming. This isn't just another episode. This is the beginning of the end, and it will shake you. Season 6 of The Chosen wastes no time pulling us straight into the emotional chaos of Jesus' final night. The moment the episode opens, there's a shift. Gone are the moments of light-hearted fellowship or public miracles. We are now in the shadows. And this isn't just symbolic. Dallas Jenkins and his team have intentionally chosen to shoot most of this season at night, leaning into the eerie, almost suffocating atmosphere of those hours leading up to the crucifixion. It's dark in the story, it's dark on screen, and it's dark in the hearts of the people around Jesus. The mood is heavy, and the air feels thick with tension because, as viewers, we know what's coming. But what makes this episode so powerful is that the characters don't fully understand it yet. Not even the disciples. Right away, we're thrown into the emotional aftermath of the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus has just been arrested. The peaceful moment of prayer has turned into a violent betrayal. Judas is gone and the others are scattered, confused, terrified, and heartbroken. What follows is the first phase of Jesus' trial, and it's unlike anything we've seen in the show before. This isn't a dramatic courtroom scene with fiery arguments or triumphant speeches. No, it's much quieter, more brutal, and far more real. Jesus is taken to Annas, the former high priest who still holds significant influence among the Jewish leaders. This isn't an official trial, it's more like an interrogation behind closed doors. There's something deeply unsettling about how secretive and manipulative this moment feels. Annas questions Jesus about his teachings, his followers, and what he claims about himself. But Jesus, with quiet authority, refuses to play their game. He doesn't plead for his life. He doesn't try to escape. Instead, he tells them plainly, "I've spoken openly to the world. Ask those who heard me." That response doesn't go over well. One of the guards strikes him across the face. It's sudden, shocking, and personal. In that moment, we feel it. Not just the pain, but the weight of what's happening. The Son of God is being slapped by a man he created, and yet he remains silent, not weak, not passive, but resolute. That's what makes this episode so haunting. Jesus' silence isn't empty. It's full of strength, full of purpose, and full of the knowledge that this path leads to the cross. He's not a victim of circumstance. He's willingly walking into the storm. From Annas, Jesus is sent to Caiaphas, the current high priest. This is where the stakes rise even higher. The Sanhedrin is gathered, the religious elite who feel threatened by Jesus' message and growing influence. They're desperate for a reason to condemn him, but their case is full of holes. Witnesses contradict each other. Accusations don't align. It's chaos masquerading as justice. Still, the trial pushes forward. Finally, Caiaphas confronts Jesus directly. "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" And here, everything shifts. Jesus speaks again, not to defend, but to declare. He says, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." That statement changes everything. In the eyes of the council, it's blasphemy. In reality, it's truth, but it's also the final nail in the coffin. Caiaphas tears his robes in fury. The council erupts. And the sentence is decided: death. But there's a problem. The Jewish leaders don't have the authority to execute anyone. They need Rome's approval. And so begins the next phase of the journey: Jesus before Pilate. The transition from religious judgment to political maneuvering is sharp. With the religious trial complete, the focus turns to Rome, where Jesus is now viewed not as a heretic, but as a potential revolutionary. The leaders twist their accusations. They claim Jesus is stirring rebellion, calling himself a king, and threatening Caesar's authority. But Pilate, the Roman governor, isn't convinced. And here's where the episode becomes even more tragic. Pilate doesn't hate Jesus. In fact, it's clear he sees something different in him, something pure, even royal. He questions him privately, asking, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus responds, not with ambition or fear, but with clarity. "My kingdom is not of this world." Pilate finds no fault in him. But he also doesn't have the courage to stand firm. The pressure from the crowd and the Jewish leaders grows louder. They demand blood. They want Jesus crucified. Pilate, caught in the middle, tries to find a way out. He sends Jesus to Herod. Maybe Herod will deal with him. Maybe this will all blow over. But deep down, we already know where this is going. And so does Jesus. He walks through these moments with steady steps, knowing the destination, feeling the weight of every word and every silence. As Jesus is brought before Herod Antipas, the tone of the episode shifts again, this time into something almost grotesque. Herod isn't like Pilate. He's not burdened by political pressure or religious duty. He's entertained, curious, almost amused. When Jesus enters, Herod doesn't see a man on trial. He sees a show. He wants a miracle, a performance, something to satisfy his twisted curiosity. But Jesus remains completely silent. Not a single word. Not even a glance that gives Herod what he wants. That silence is louder than anything Jesus could have said. It exposes Herod's hollowness. His court is nothing more than a circus, and Jesus won't participate. This infuriates Herod. He mocks Jesus, dresses him in a royal robe as if to make fun of his so-called kingship, and sends him back to Pilate with nothing decided. It's a disturbing moment, not because of violence or torture, but because of the sheer disregard for the gravity of what's happening. Herod looks God in the face and sees nothing but a joke. When Jesus returns to Pilate, everything feels heavier. The options are running out. Pilate still doesn't want to execute him. He knows this isn't justice. But the crowd is growing restless. Religious leaders are stirring the people into a frenzy, shouting accusations, feeding fear and anger. So Pilate tries one last thing. He offers a choice. It's Passover, and according to tradition, one prisoner can be released. Pilate brings out two men, Jesus, who has done nothing wrong, and Barabbas, a known rebel and murderer. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. It should be a simple choice. One man brings peace, the other brings violence. But the crowd, blinded by manipulation and rage, screams for Barabbas. "Release Barabbas!" they shout. "Crucify Jesus!" It's a turning point that never fails to break the heart. Pilate watches the crowd choose death over life, darkness over light. He tries to reason with them, but their minds are made up. The leaders have poisoned them with fear. They see Jesus as a threat, not because of what he's done, but because of what he represents. Change, truth, conviction. Pilate, realizing he's lost control, calls for water. In front of everyone, he washes his hands. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he says. But we know he's not, because no matter how much water he uses, the guilt can't be rinsed away. With that, the sentence is sealed. Jesus is handed over to be crucified. But before the cross, there's the flogging. And the Chosen doesn't shy away from showing the brutality of what Jesus endured. Roman flogging wasn't a light punishment. It was designed to break a man. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. Jesus is tied to a post, and the whips tear into his back again and again. This isn't violence for shock value. This is the price of our peace. The pain isn't just in the strikes, it's in the silence between them, the heavy breathing, the blood hitting the ground, the look in his eyes that says, "I'm still going." The Roman soldiers, brutal and bored, decide to mock him even further. They twist together a crown made of thorns and force it onto his head. Blood trickles down his face. They drape a purple robe over his shredded back, bowing in false worship. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They shout, laughing, hitting, spitting. It's the lowest moment humanity has to offer. We see pride, cruelty, and mockery all crashing down on the only one truly worthy of a crown. And still, Jesus endures it all. Silent, strong, focused on what must come next. Pilate, after all this, tries one final time to sway the crowd. He brings Jesus out, bloodied and broken, and says, "Behold the man." It's a desperate attempt to stir pity, to show the people that Jesus has suffered enough. But it doesn't work. The crowd is past feeling, their cries grow louder, "Crucify him," until Pilate finally breaks. He gives them what they want, not because it's right, but because he's afraid. He doesn't want a riot. He doesn't want to lose control. And so, the innocent is condemned, not by a fair trial, not by truth, but by fear, manipulation, and the madness of a crowd that forgot who it was shouting at. This is how episode 1 ends, not with resolution, but with tension that leaves your heart pounding. We're not at the cross yet, but we're close. And the show makes you feel every step. It doesn't rush, it lingers. It makes you sit in the weight of injustice, because that's where transformation begins, not in comfort, but in confrontation, in being forced to look at what we've done, what we've become, and what it cost him to love us anyway. While the world outside is roaring for blood, somewhere far from the crowds, the disciples are falling apart. And this is where The Chosen does something incredible. It doesn't just show us what's happening to Jesus, it shows us what his suffering does to the people who love him. After Jesus is taken away, the disciples are left in confusion, guilt, and raw terror. They've scattered. They don't know where he is, and some of them don't even know if they're next. These men who once stood boldly at his side are now hiding in the shadows, hearts pounding, faith trembling. And who could blame them? Their teacher, the one they believed was the Messiah, is now being dragged through a system rigged to destroy him. What do you do when everything you believed in looks like it's falling apart? Peter, especially, is unraveling. And this is where the emotional weight hits its peak. Just hours before, Peter promised Jesus that he would never leave him, never deny him, even if it cost him his life. But now we see the cracks. As Jesus is taken from trial to trial, Peter follows at a distance, trying to stay close, trying to be brave, but also trying not to be noticed. And that's when it happens. A servant girl spots him and says, "Weren't you with him?" Peter denies it. Then again, and then a third time. "I don't know the man," he shouts. And in that instant, the rooster crows. That sound slices through the night like a blade, and Peter remembers Jesus' words. "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." It's one of the most heartbreaking moments in Scripture, and The Chosen captures it with haunting intimacy. You don't just see Peter's failure, you feel it. The shame, the regret, the self-hatred. He's not just grieving for Jesus, he's grieving for what he's done to him. And the most devastating part? Jesus sees it all. Their eyes meet. No words, just a look. And Peter breaks. He runs into the night, consumed by guilt, unable to undo what's been done. In that moment, Peter doesn't feel like a disciple. He feels like a traitor. Meanwhile, the other disciples are scattered across Jerusalem, each one dealing with the unfolding nightmare in their own way. Some are hiding. Some are watching from a distance. Others are just trying to survive. And somewhere in the chaos, we remember, Judas is missing. His betrayal set everything into motion, but now even he is haunted by what he's done. We don't see him in every frame, but his presence lingers like a ghost. Because The Chosen doesn't let us forget, this is a story filled with real people. People who failed, people who fell, people who loved Jesus but still cracked under pressure. And somehow, that makes it all the more human, all the more real. But while the disciples are shattering under the weight of fear, there's one character who holds steady: Mary, the mother of Jesus. Her presence in this episode is quiet but powerful. She doesn't scream or collapse or question everything. She watches, she weeps, she follows. Her son is being mocked, beaten, and condemned, and yet she stays near. Her silence is filled with agony. Every motherly instinct in her wants to protect him, but she knows she can't. This has to happen. He has to walk this road, and so she does the only thing she can. She stays close. Not to stop the suffering, but to make sure he doesn't face it alone. There's a chilling beauty in how this episode contrasts the chaos of the world with the stillness of Jesus. While everyone else is panicking, plotting, or running, he remains calm. Every step is deliberate. Every moment is filled with purpose. He's not a man being dragged to his death. He's a king walking toward his throne, and that's what The Chosen captures so brilliantly. Even in his silence, Jesus speaks louder than anyone. Even in his weakness, he is stronger than all of them. And even in his humiliation, he reigns. And through all this, we feel the countdown ticking. The cross is no longer a distant threat. It's right around the corner. Episode 1 ends, not with resolution, but with a storm gathering on the horizon. Jesus has been condemned. The crowd is satisfied. The disciples are broken. And yet, deep down, we know this is not the end. The darkest night is here, but morning is coming. And when it does, nothing will ever be the same. As episode 1 closes, the echo of "Crucify him" still hangs in the air, and Jesus is led away, not as a man defeated, but as a lamb prepared. The weight of what we've just witnessed sits heavy on the heart, and The Chosen doesn't rush to offer comfort. It sits with us in the agony. This episode doesn't aim to resolve the pain. It invites us to feel it, to understand the cost. Because before resurrection comes the grave. Before glory, there's the cross. And Dallas Jenkins, in one of the boldest storytelling decisions yet, chooses to stretch out these final moments, not in action-packed sequences, but in quiet suffering, reflective pain, and human emotion that pulls you in whether you're ready or not. There's a profound stillness to the end of this episode. Jesus, bloodied, crowned with thorns, is paraded through the streets like a criminal, while the same city that welcomed him with palm branches now watches in silence, or worse, cheers his humiliation. The purple robe sticks to his wounds, the mockery of King of the Jews still ringing as he's pushed and dragged toward what everyone believes will be his end. The soldiers aren't concerned with justice. To them, he's just another man sentenced to die. But we know. We, as the audience, are bearing witness not just to a crucifixion, but to the fulfillment of a prophecy, the unfolding of a divine plan that's been in motion since the beginning of time. And through all of this, The Chosen draws out a theme more powerful than any visual: voluntary surrender. Jesus doesn't resist. He doesn't protest. He doesn't curse his enemies. Every step he takes toward Golgotha is taken with purpose. And that's what makes this episode unforgettable. It reframes what we thought we knew. The tragedy here isn't in defeat. It's in love. Love so deep, so unshakable, that he endured betrayal, injustice, brutality, and death just to rescue the very people who shouted for his execution. And somehow, knowing that makes it harder to watch. Because this isn't just a story. It's a mirror. It asks us to look inward, to see the parts of ourselves in the crowd, in Peter's denial, in Judas's betrayal, in Pilate's fear. Even the setting reflects that. Filming in North Texas, Utah, and the ancient streets of Matera, Italy, the same place used in the Passion of the Christ, gives this episode a kind of sacred atmosphere. The stone walls, the dim torchlight, the chill in the air, it all feels real, tangible. You're not watching from a distance. You're there. And according to Dallas Jenkins, every frame was designed to carry emotional and spiritual weight. This isn't just an episode, it's a cinematic prayer, a cry of anguish, a testimony of truth. And as we know now, this isn't even the climax yet. That comes later, with the $30 million finale, which will play in theaters worldwide. But this first episode, it lays the foundation. It tells us, without apology, that this season is different, deeper, heavier, more personal. And the fact that they chose to open with this, with Jesus' arrest, trial, denial, and condemnation, proves one thing. The Chosen is not afraid. Not afraid to show the pain, not afraid to slow down, not afraid to let us sit in the brokenness before we see the healing. The cast has echoed this. Jonathan Rumi called this the most emotionally demanding performance of his life. Not because of the lines, but because of the silence, because of the weight of the moment, the hours spent reenacting the suffering of Christ, not as an act, but as a form of surrender. And Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary Magdalene, said the set felt sacred, heavy, like something holy was happening. This wasn't just another scene. This was history. This was heartache. This was heaven invading earth through the quiet suffering of one man. And now, with this episode behind us, we wait. The road to the cross is underway. The disciples are scattered. The city is blinded by rage. And Jesus is walking, step by step, toward the most brutal moment of his earthly life. But there is something powerful in the pacing, because The Chosen doesn't just want to show you what happened, it wants you to feel it, to walk with him, to break with Peter, to weep with Mary, to stand in the shoes of the crowd and ask yourself, if you were there, what would you have done? This isn't entertainment, this is encounter. And by the time the credits roll on episode 1, one thing becomes clear. The Chosen has never gone deeper, and it's only just begun.